Black homeless girl asked the millionaire, "Can I eat with you, Daddy?" His response shocks. The rain was coming down hard on that cold Tuesday evening in downtown Chicago. The streets were almost empty except for a few people rushing to get home. Inside the fancy restaurant called the Golden Crown, everything was warm and bright. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling like diamonds. Rich people sat at tables covered with white cloth, eating food that cost more than most families spent in a week. The smell of expensive perfume mixed with the aroma of gourmet food. Soft piano music played in the background while waiters in black suits moved between tables like shadows. Nobody noticed the small figure standing outside in the rain, pressing her face against the glass window. 7-year-old Maya stood there shivering in her torn jacket that was 3 sizes too big. Her dark skin glistened with raindrops, and her big brown eyes watched the people inside eating their fancy meals. She had not eaten anything for 2 days except a half-eaten sandwich she found in a trash can. Her stomach hurt so bad it felt like someone was squeezing it from inside. She watched a man throw away half his steak, and tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks. Maya knew she did not belong in a place like this. People like her, homeless kids with no parents, were not welcome in places where a single meal cost hundreds of dollars. But hunger makes you brave sometimes. It makes you do things you would never normally do. She pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped inside. The moment Maya entered the restaurant, everything seemed to stop. The warm air hit her wet clothes, making them steam slightly. Water dripped from her hair onto the expensive marble floor. People at nearby tables stopped eating and stared at her. Some whispered to each other behind their hands. A woman in a fur coat made a disgusted face and moved her purse closer to her body. Maya's bare feet left wet prints on the floor as she walked forward. She saw a black man sitting alone at a corner table. Something about him seemed different from the others. While everyone else looked at her with disgust or fear, he watched her with curious eyes. He was wearing an expensive black suit, but he did not have that mean look that rich people usually gave her. Marcus Sterling was 45 years old and owned 3 technology companies worth billions of dollars. He had grown up poor in Detroit, raised by a grandmother who cleaned houses for rich families. Tonight, he was eating alone as usual, thinking about a business deal worth $50 million. But when he saw Maya walk in, something in his chest tightened. She reminded him of himself at that age, hungry and desperate, looking through restaurant windows and dreaming of having enough food to eat. He watched as the restaurant manager, a tall white man named Robert Harrison, rushed toward the little girl with an angry face. "Get out of here right now." Robert grabbed Maya's thin arm hard enough to make her cry out. "We do not allow beggars in here. This is a respectable establishment." He started dragging her toward the door while she struggled against his grip. "Street children like you belong in the gutter, not in here with decent people." The other customers watched but nobody said anything. Some even nodded in agreement. A couple at a nearby table complained that the child was ruining their anniversary dinner. Another man said loudly that the police should be called to remove this kind of trash from the neighborhood. Maya looked desperately at Marcus, tears streaming down her face. Something made her reach out her small hand toward him and say the words that would change everything. "Please, can I eat with you, Daddy?" Her voice was small but clear, cutting through the restaurant noise like a knife. "I am so hungry, Daddy. Please." The entire restaurant went completely silent. Every single person turned to look at Marcus. The manager's hand froze on Maya's arm. Even the piano player stopped playing. Everyone waited to see what the black millionaire would do. Marcus stood up slowly from his chair. He was 6 feet tall and when he stood, he commanded attention. He looked at Robert with eyes that could have frozen fire. Then he looked at Maya, and his expression softened completely. "Of course you can eat with me, sweetheart," he said in a voice that carried across the entire restaurant. "Come here, baby girl. Nobody is going to hurt you." He walked over and gently took Maya's hand from Robert's grip. The manager's face turned red, then white, then red again. "Mr. Sterling," Robert stammered, suddenly recognizing who he was dealing with. Marcus Sterling was not just any customer. He was one of the richest men in Chicago. His companies employed thousands of people. He donated millions to charity every year. Newspapers wrote articles about him. "I did not know she was." "I mean, you never mentioned having a daughter." Marcus looked at him with disgust clear on his face. "So if she was not my daughter, it would be okay to treat her like garbage? Is that what you are saying, Mr. Harrison?" The manager started sweating even though the restaurant was cool. Other customers began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. The woman in the fur coat who had moved her purse earlier now looked embarrassed. Her husband whispered urgently for her to stop staring. Meanwhile, Marcus led Maya to his table, pulled out a chair for her like she was a princess, and helped her sit down. He took off his expensive suit jacket and wrapped it around her wet shoulders. Then he handed her the cloth napkin from the table to dry her face. "What would you like to eat, sweetheart?" Marcus asked gently, handing her the menu. Maya's eyes went wide when she saw all the fancy words she could not read and the prices that seemed impossible. "Can I really have anything?" she whispered like she could not believe this was real. Marcus nodded with a warm smile. "Anything at all. In fact, let us order one of everything if you want." The waiter, a young man named James, stood nearby looking confused and scared. He kept glancing between Marcus, Maya, and his manager, not knowing what to do. Robert Harrison was not ready to give up. He had been manager of the Golden Crown for 20 years. He had built his reputation on keeping undesirable elements out of the establishment. He approached the table again, this time trying a different strategy. "Mr. Sterling, I understand your kindness, but we have health codes to consider. This child is clearly not clean. Our other customers have a right to dine in a hygienic environment. Perhaps I could arrange for a takeout order instead." Several other customers murmured in agreement. An elderly woman said loudly that she was worried about diseases. A businessman complained that the child's appearance was affecting his appetite. Marcus pulled out his phone and started recording video without being obvious about it. "Mr. Harrison, are you refusing to serve a child because of how she looks? Are you discriminating against her because she is poor and black?" His voice was calm, but there was danger underneath it, like a shark swimming just below the surface of water. "Because that sounds like several violations of federal law to me." The manager's face went pale. He realized he was walking into a trap, but his prejudice was so strong he could not help himself. "I am simply trying to maintain standards," Robert said stiffly. "Surely you understand that we cannot have every homeless person walking in here demanding food. What kind of precedent would that set?" A woman at another table, Jennifer Walsh, decided to support the manager. "He is absolutely right," she said loudly. "I pay good money to eat here specifically to avoid this kind of situation. If I wanted to eat with homeless people, I would volunteer at a soup kitchen." Her husband tried to quiet her, but she continued. "That child probably has lice and who knows what else. It is disgusting." Maya heard every word and started to cry quietly. She tried to get up to leave, but Marcus gently placed his hand on her shoulder to keep her seated. "You belong here just as much as anyone else," he told her softly. Then he stood up and addressed the entire restaurant. His voice was not loud, but it carried power that made everyone listen. "I want everyone here to know something. This little girl has more dignity in her little finger than most of you have in your entire bodies. She is hungry and asked for food. That is not a crime. But treating her like she is less than human because she is poor. That is the real disgrace here." A younger couple at a corner table started clapping slowly. The woman said, "He is right. We should be ashamed of ourselves." But they were in the minority. Most of the other customers looked angry or uncomfortable. One man got up and said he was leaving because he did not pay premium prices to eat with street trash. His wife followed him out, but not before making a comment about how these people were ruining everything good in the city. Marcus turned back to Maya and smiled warmly. Do not listen to them, baby girl. Now, what would you like to eat? Maya pointed to a picture of chicken tenders and French fries, the only thing on the menu she recognized. And can I have chocolate milk? She asked shyly. Marcus told the waiter to bring 2 orders of everything Maya wanted, plus a large pizza, hamburgers, and every dessert on the menu. We are going to have a feast, he announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. While they waited for the food, Marcus asked Maya about herself. She told him her name and that she was 7 years old. Her mother had died 6 months ago from being sick, and she did not know who her father was. She had been living on the streets, sleeping in cardboard boxes and eating from trash cans. Sometimes nice people gave her $1 or some food, but mostly people pretended she was invisible. She had learned which restaurants threw away good food and what time was best to search the dumpsters. She knew which doorways were safe to sleep in and which ones to avoid. The food arrived, carried by 3 waiters whom Marcus had specifically requested. The table was soon covered with more food than Maya had ever seen in her life. Her eyes filled with tears of joy as she looked at it all. She did not know where to start. Marcus helped her, cutting up the chicken tenders into small pieces and making sure she had napkins. He poured her chocolate milk and told her to eat slowly so her stomach would not hurt. As she ate, he noticed how she kept looking around fearfully, like someone might take the food away. Robert Harrison watched from across the room, his anger growing with each passing minute. This was not how things were supposed to go. The Golden Crown was supposed to be a place for the elite, not for homeless children who did not belong. He made a decision that would soon cost him everything. He walked over to the table one more time. Mr. Sterling, I am going to have to insist that you leave. Both of you. This is disrupting our entire establishment. Marcus smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Mr. Harrison, I need to tell you something. But first, let me make a phone call. He dialed a number on his phone and put it on speaker. Sandra? Yes, it is Marcus. I am at the Golden Crown. Can you come here with the documents? And bring Channel 7 News with you. They will want to see this. The manager's face went from pale to ghost white. What documents? What are you talking about? Marcus leaned back in his chair, still smiling that dangerous smile. Did you know that I have been trying to buy this restaurant for 2 years? The owners kept refusing to sell. But last month, they finally agreed. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. I now own the Golden Crown, Mr. Harrison. Which means I am your boss. Or rather, I was your boss. Because you are fired. The entire restaurant gasped. Robert Harrison staggered backward like he had been punched. You own, but that is impossible. I would have been told. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed him an email. The announcement was scheduled for tomorrow morning. But after witnessing your behavior tonight, I think we need to make some immediate changes. Security, please escort Mr. Harrison out of my restaurant. 2 security guards appeared, seemingly from nowhere. As they approached Robert, he started shouting. You cannot do this. I have worked here for 20 years. This is all because of that street child. She does not belong here. Marcus stood up, his full height making him tower over the manager. You are right about one thing. She does not belong here. She belongs somewhere much better. Which is why I am not just giving her dinner tonight. Everyone in the restaurant was now watching with complete attention. Even the kitchen staff had come out to see what was happening. Marcus turned to Maya, who was watching everything with wide, confused eyes. Maya, how would you like to come live with me? I have a big house with lots of rooms. You would have your own bedroom, new clothes, toys, and you would never be hungry again. I can send you to school. You can have a real family. Maya's mouth fell open. She could not believe what she was hearing. You mean, you want to adopt me? But why? You do not even know me. Marcus knelt down beside her chair so they were eye to eye. Because everyone deserves a chance, sweetheart. I was once a little boy with no food and no hope. Someone gave me a chance. Now I want to give you one. Will you let me? Before Maya could answer, Jennifer Walsh, the woman who had complained earlier, stood up angrily. This is ridiculous. You cannot just adopt some random street child. What about background checks? What about proper procedures? This is obviously just a publicity stunt. Her voice was shrill and angry. Other customers started murmuring, some in agreement, others in surprise. Marcus stood up and faced her. Mrs. Walsh, is it? You are right that there are legal procedures. My lawyers have already started the paperwork for emergency foster care placement. As for it being a publicity stunt, I could not care less what you or anyone else thinks. This child needs a home. I have a home to give. It is that simple. He turned to address everyone in the restaurant. And let me make something else clear. Starting tomorrow, this restaurant will have a new policy. Every night, we will reserve 10 tables for families who cannot afford to eat here. They will eat for free, the same food as everyone else. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several customers stood up and said they would never eat there again. One man shouted that Marcus was ruining a fine establishment with his bleeding heart nonsense. Another woman said she would tell all her friends to boycott the restaurant. But something interesting happened too. The young couple who had clapped earlier stood up and started clapping again. Then James the waiter joined them. Then another waiter. Soon, about half the restaurant was applauding while the other half looked furious. Robert Harrison was still being escorted out by security, but he turned back one last time. You will regret this, Sterling. This restaurant will be empty within a month. Nobody wants to eat with homeless people. Marcus did not even look at him. He was focused on Maya, who had tears streaming down her face. Is this real? She kept asking. Is this really real? A woman entered the restaurant with a camera crew right behind her. It was Sandra Williams, Marcus's lawyer, and she had brought the local news as requested. The reporter, a young man named David Chen, immediately started setting up for an interview. Mr. Sterling, we heard there was a major announcement about the Golden Crown tonight. The cameras started rolling, broadcasting live to thousands of homes across Chicago. Marcus stood tall and spoke clearly into the camera. Yes, there is. As of today, I am the new owner of the Golden Crown. And we are making some changes. This will no longer be a restaurant that discriminates against people based on their economic status. We will maintain our high standards of food and service, but we will also open our doors to those who need help. 10 tables every night will be reserved for families who cannot afford to eat here. They will be treated with the same respect and dignity as any other customer. The reporter looked surprised but impressed. That is a bold move, Mr. Sterling. What inspired this decision? Marcus put his hand on Maya's shoulder. This brave little girl inspired it. She reminded me that hunger does not care about your skin color or your bank account. She reminded me that we have a responsibility to help each other. And she reminded me that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. Jennifer Walsh could not contain herself any longer. She pushed her way in front of the camera. This is insane. He is destroying a landmark restaurant for some political correctness nonsense. I have been coming here for 15 years, and now he wants us to eat with beggars and criminals. The camera turned to her, broadcasting her red, angry face to thousands of viewers. Marcus responded calmly. Mrs. Walsh, no one is forcing you to eat here. If sharing a space with less fortunate people bothers you that much, there are plenty of other restaurants in Chicago. But the Golden Crown will no longer be a place where human beings are treated as less than human because of their circumstances. The reporter asked Jennifer if she had any response. She stammered something about property values and walked quickly out of the restaurant with her embarrassed husband following behind. As the news crew continued filming, more interesting things started happening. A well-dressed elderly man stood up and walked over to Marcus. "Mr. Sterling, I am Howard Franklin. I own Franklin Industries. I want you to know that I support what you are doing. In fact, I would like to donate $100,000 to help fund those free meals." The restaurant buzzed with surprise. Then another business owner stood up and offered $50,000. Then another offered $25,000. Within minutes, Marcus had received pledges totaling $500,000. But more importantly, he noticed that the angry customers who had threatened to leave were now in the minority. Many people were smiling, some were crying, and most seemed to be reconsidering their earlier reactions. The atmosphere in the restaurant had completely changed from hostility to something close to hope. Maya tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Mr. Sterling, are you really going to be my daddy?" she asked in a small voice. Marcus knelt down again and looked her in the eyes. "If you will have me, yes. I know I am not your real father, but I promise to love you and take care of you like you were my own blood. Would you like that?" Maya threw her arms around his neck and sobbed into his shoulder. "Yes, yes, yes," she cried. "I prayed every night for someone to love me, and you came." The camera captured the whole emotional moment. Across Chicago, thousands of people watched as a billionaire hugged a homeless child like she was the most precious thing in the world. Social media exploded with the video clip. Within an hour, it had been shared millions of times. The hashtag #LoveNotStatus started trending. People from all over the country started calling the Golden Crown to make reservations, wanting to support the new inclusive policy. 3 months later, the Golden Crown was more successful than ever. The reservation list was booked solid for 6 months in advance. The mix of wealthy customers and families eating for free created an atmosphere unlike any other restaurant in the country. Magazine articles were written about the revolutionary restaurant that was changing how America thought about charity and dignity. Robert Harrison, the former manager, could not find work at any respectable restaurant. His discriminatory behavior had been broadcast on live television, and no one wanted to hire him. He ended up working at a fast food restaurant, taking orders from teenagers. Every day, he saw news about the Golden Crown's success and grew more bitter. He tried to sue Marcus for wrongful termination but lost because everything had been recorded. Jennifer Walsh and her husband faced their own consequences. The video of her angry rant went viral, and she became known as the "heartless woman of Chicago." Her husband's business partners distanced themselves from him. Their country club membership was revoked. Their own children were embarrassed and stopped visiting them. Jennifer learned the hard way that cruelty broadcast to the world has consequences that last long after the cameras stop rolling. Maya Sterling, as she was now legally known, thrived in her new life. She started attending one of the best private schools in Chicago. Her grades were excellent, and she made many friends. She never forgot where she came from, though. Every weekend, she and Marcus would go to homeless shelters to serve food and bring supplies. She would tell the other children there that miracles could happen, that they should never give up hope. Marcus discovered that being a father was the greatest joy of his life. Maya brought a light into his world that all his billions could never have purchased. He had thought he was saving her, but in truth, she had saved him from a life of loneliness and emptiness. Their bond grew stronger every day. She would run to him when he came home from work, shouting, "Daddy," with such joy that it made his heart swell every time. The Golden Crown became more than just a restaurant. It became a symbol of what was possible when people chose love over prejudice, inclusion over exclusion. The 10 free tables every night were always full, and the paying customers learned to see the humanity in everyone who walked through the doors. Children who had never spoken to someone from a different economic background made friends across the dining room. Elderly people who had held prejudices their whole lives found themselves reconsidering their beliefs. A year later, Marcus opened 5 more restaurants with the same policy. Other restaurant owners across the country started following his example. What had started as one hungry little girl asking for food had turned into a movement that changed thousands of lives. Maya often spoke at charity events, telling her story and encouraging others to help however they could. She would say, "I was invisible until someone saw me. Now I want to make sure no child is invisible ever again." The ripple effects continued to spread. The young couple who had supported Marcus that first night, Thomas and Sarah Mitchell, were so inspired that they started their own charity. They focused on providing meals and temporary housing for homeless families. They often brought families to eat at the Golden Crown, where they were always treated with respect and dignity. James, the waiter who had been confused that first night, went on to become the new manager of the Golden Crown. Marcus had seen his compassion and promoted him. Under James's leadership, the restaurant developed programs to hire formerly homeless individuals, giving them job training and a chance to rebuild their lives. Many of them went on to successful careers in the restaurant industry. 5 years passed. Maya was 12 now, a bright, confident girl who spoke 3 languages and played violin in the youth orchestra. She had grown tall and strong, with a smile that could light up any room. But she never forgot that hungry, scared little girl she had been. In her room, she kept a photo from that first night at the Golden Crown, when she was 7 and desperate. It reminded her how quickly life could change when someone chose kindness over cruelty. Marcus had adopted 2 more children from the streets, a boy named Samuel and a girl named Rose. Maya was the best big sister anyone could ask for. She helped them with homework, taught them to tie their shoes, and held them when they had nightmares about their old lives. The Sterling family was unusual but beautiful, bound together not by blood but by love and shared understanding of what it meant to be given a second chance. The Golden Crown continued to thrive and inspire. Documentary films were made about it. Business schools taught case studies about how inclusion and compassion could actually be good for profits. Politicians cited it as an example of private sector solutions to social problems. But for Marcus and Maya, it remained simply the place where their family had begun, where a desperate plea from a hungry child had been answered with love instead of rejection. On the 5th anniversary of that fateful night, the Golden Crown held a special celebration. Maya, now 12, stood at a microphone in front of hundreds of guests. She was wearing a beautiful blue dress, her hair done in elaborate braids, looking nothing like the desperate child who had stumbled in from the rain. But when she spoke, her words carried the weight of someone who had lived through darkness and found light. 5 years ago, I asked a stranger if I could eat with him. I called him Daddy because something in my heart told me he was meant to be my father. I was hungry, cold, and had lost all hope. But Mr. Marcus Sterling did not just give me food. He gave me a family, a future, and most importantly, he gave me the knowledge that I mattered. That I was worthy of love and respect regardless of my circumstances. She paused, looking out at the crowd, many of whom were crying. Tonight, I want to speak to anyone who feels invisible, worthless, or forgotten. You matter. Your life has value. Do not give up hope. And to those who have the power to help, remember that the smallest act of kindness can change the entire trajectory of someone's life. My daddy proved that when he chose love over prejudice, compassion over conformity. He did not just change my life. He changed thousands of lives by showing that there is no us in them, there is only us. The room erupted in applause. Marcus stood watching his daughter with tears streaming down his face. Robert Harrison was there too, in the back of the room. He had written to Marcus asking for forgiveness and for a chance to make amends. Marcus had invited him to the celebration. Robert was crying too, finally understanding what he had nearly destroyed with his prejudice and hatred. Jennifer Walsh had also come, though she stood in the shadows, ashamed of her past behavior. She had spent years in therapy trying to understand why she had been so cruel to a hungry child. She had written Maya a letter of apology, which the girl had graciously accepted. Jennifer now volunteered at a soup kitchen, trying to make up for the harm she had caused. She watched Maya speak and felt the weight of what could have been lost if Marcus had not stood up for what was right. As the celebration continued, Maya found a quiet moment with Marcus on the restaurant's balcony. They looked out at the Chicago skyline, lights twinkling like stars. "Daddy," she said, "do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had said no that night?" Marcus pulled her close. "I do not wonder, sweetheart, because I know. I would have missed out on the greatest blessing of my life. You did not just ask for food that night. You offered me the chance to be your father. That was the real gift." Maya leaned against him, feeling safe and loved. "I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to help other kids the way you helped me." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "You already are helping, baby girl. Every time you share your story, every time you show kindness to someone who is struggling, you are changing the world. You taught me that true wealth is not measured in money but in the lives we touch and the love we share." Inside the restaurant, the celebration continued. Former homeless individuals who had been helped by the Golden Crowns program shared their success stories. Business owners announced new initiatives to provide jobs and housing. City officials discussed policy changes inspired by Marcus's example. What had started as one man's decision to stand against prejudice had become a movement that was reshaping the entire city's approach to poverty and homelessness. As the night ended, Maya stood once more before the crowd. "I want to leave you with one thought," she said. "Every person you pass on the street, every individual you judge by their appearance, every human being you dismiss as unworthy, they all have a story. They all have dreams. They all deserve dignity. My daddy taught me that, and now I am teaching you. The question is not whether people deserve our help. The question is whether we deserve the privilege of helping them." The impact of that night 5 years ago continued to ripple outward. Other cities started their own versions of the Golden Crowns inclusive dining program. Schools began teaching courses on economic justice and compassion. Churches, synagogues, and mosques started programs to connect wealthy and poor families. The simple act of a desperate child asking for food had sparked a revolution of kindness that no one could have predicted. Maya went on to graduate from high school as valedictorian. In her graduation speech, she told the story of that rainy night one more time. She spoke of hunger and desperation, of prejudice and cruelty, but mostly she spoke of hope and transformation. She announced that she would be attending law school to become an advocate for homeless children. The girl who had once eaten from trash cans was going to change laws to ensure no child would ever have to experience what she had. Marcus watched from the audience, proud beyond words. He had built billion-dollar companies, had his picture on magazine covers, had awards and accolades from around the world. But nothing compared to the pride of watching his daughter, the little girl who had called him daddy before she even knew his name, stand strong and confident, ready to change the world. He thought about all the people who had said she did not belong, who had tried to throw her out, who had called her trash. He wondered if they understood now what they had almost destroyed. The Golden Crown stood as a testament to what was possible when love conquered fear, when compassion defeated prejudice, when one person decided to stand up for what was right regardless of the consequences. The crystal chandeliers still sparkled, the white tablecloths were still pristine, the food was still exceptional. But now, at any given table, you might find a CEO sitting next to a single mother who had just gotten back on her feet, a judge dining beside a formerly homeless veteran, children from all backgrounds laughing together over dessert. The restaurant that had once prided itself on exclusion had become famous for its inclusion. The establishment that had tried to throw out a hungry child had become a sanctuary for anyone who needed a meal and dignity. The manager who had grabbed Maya's arm that night had been replaced by people who understood that true class had nothing to do with money and everything to do with how you treated others. The customers who had complained about dining with those people had been replaced by customers who came specifically because they wanted to be part of something meaningful. And at the heart of it all was the relationship between Marcus and Maya, a father and daughter not bound by blood but by something stronger. They had saved each other that night. He had given her food, shelter, and love. She had given him purpose, joy, and the courage to use his wealth for something greater than himself. Together, they had proven that family was not about DNA but about choosing to love someone unconditionally, choosing to stand up for them when the whole world was against them, choosing to see their worth when everyone else saw only their circumstances. Years later, when Maya had her own children, she would tell them the story of the night she met their grandfather. She would tell them about being hungry and scared, about the mean manager and the cruel customers, but mostly she would tell them about the man who had looked at a desperate, dirty little girl and seen a daughter. She would teach them what Marcus had taught her, that everyone deserves dignity, that kindness is the greatest form of strength, and that sometimes the smallest voice asking for help can start a revolution that changes the world. The Golden Crown still stands today, still serving free meals alongside paying customers, still proving every single night that inclusion makes everyone richer, that compassion is good for business, and that when you open your doors to everyone, magic happens. And sometimes, late at night when the restaurant is quiet, if you know where to look, you can still see the spot where a hungry little girl stood dripping rain on the marble floor, where she asked a stranger if she could eat with him, where she called him daddy, and where he said yes, changing both their lives and countless others forever.